Okay, so what we're talking about today is assessment. You know, everybody thinks of ABET when we're dealing with assessment, but when we do all these changes, we actually have to assess to say, are we making an improvement or are we making it worse? So there's going to be a lot of ABET mixed into here, but it is more than that. It's what we do. And I'm going to talk mostly about what we do as an assessment process, but I know what people actually like to hear about is what we've tried and didn't work quite well. So we kind of focus more on that than the normal, boring, this was done and this was done. Quick question for you. On a scrap of paper, and we won't do that because we don't have time, but how do you know, well, raise your hands if you think you have a good mechanical engineering program. Okay? Good or great or fantastic, whatever, all those go up. Okay, and now think to yourselves, why is it good? How do you know you have a good program? Okay? And now, while you're thinking about those things, I just recently went on a tour of a campus with my 18-year-old son who's looking around at colleges, and they're explaining why this is a good university. And what they walked through and they said, well, this much money's donated, and that's why we built this building, and our library's this big, and we have this amazing fight song, and blah, blah, blah. So most of this was all input. You know, and what we're really talking about with assessment is not what you have or what was piled into your system or how beautiful your campus is and all sort of thing. It's really about student output. Okay, or the assessment of student output. And this is a quick slide about evaluation versus assessment. My colleagues had a real problem with being assessed because they thought they were being either praised or condemned. And we tried to talk about assessment as kind of being neutral, just what it is, and we'll improve it from there. And you know, input, non-input, we'll go over that quickly. Change in reference. Okay. Now you probably already know this, but now do you measure the performance of your program? Do you compare it against past results? Now this is all about ABET. Okay, do you also compare your program against other programs? Okay, and do you continually modify the program? Now I know we all go through the hoop and pretend we do, and hopefully we do some of it, but it isn't that high a priority. Okay, what we do in our programs, we actually divide up our outcomes into 3 basic categories: knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And you can take the ABET A through K and divide them up from that and put them into those subcategories. Okay, and then you can also then, of course, add your own. And to me, it's more important that a program has its individual outcomes than just sticking with the A through K. Okay, so you'd have a general overlapping objective statement about knowledge, and then you'd list a few knowledge outcomes. A general overlapping statement about skills, and then likewise with attitudes. Okay, and when I thought I had more time, I'd ask you to share these kinds of things and talk about them, share about a knowledge. And what I wanted you to do is emphasize knowledge and skills and attitude outcomes that weren't part of the A through K, just to see what kind of clever things that you've done. Okay, you know who your constituents are. You know that it's an ongoing process, that it's a 2-loop cycle. You have to only change the objectives and outcomes less often than a year, otherwise you'd be chasing a moving target. But occasionally you have to go back and revisit those. Yearly cycle, we know that. 5-year cycle when you actually rechange the outcomes. Okay, and then getting into assessment tools. Okay, the assessment tools that we've mostly focused on are surveys, collection and presentation of sample works, exams, tests, and the capstone course. Okay, wow. Raise your hand if you use surveys. Everybody's going to use surveys, right? Yeah. Okay. Portfolios or web folios, collections of student works. Okay, fewer, interesting. Okay, exams and tests. Okay, now that's tests and exams written on campus and that sort of thing. We're going to talk a little bit about how many of you have used nationally normed tests? Okay, good. We'll talk about those. And of course, how many of you used a capstone course? Oh, good. Okay, surveys. Major battle with surveys. When you can either create them by the faculty or you can purchase them from a vendor. When you create them by the faculty, they're wonderful, they fit your needs, but we really believe they're not created with any real methodology in mind because we are engineers, we're not survey generators. So we know there's a problem because we often, when we create our surveys, we get exactly back what we want to hear. It's exactly the right answer. Purchase from a vendor, they're more general questions, but the neat thing is that the data is actually delivered. Okay? Again, if you create them by faculty, we can target exactly who we want. One thing that we did in the surveys that we did, well, we targeted faculty, students, industry, and alumni, and one thing we did that completely failed was called an alumni or alumnus employer link. We actually contacted our alumni and said, can we have the name of your employer, because we're going to send them a survey, we're going to send you a survey, and try to make a link between the two. Am I loud enough with this? Okay. So we calculate the alumni, and they basically said, well, no, we're kind of uncomfortable with that. The few that actually let us make the next step, an employer said, what, you're out of your mind? Whatever I'd say would, so complete failure there. But it was a good idea because we could sit there and link the two together. Okay, sample survey completed by the faculty. I just described that. Most alumni said it was too threatening. Most supervisors said no, concern about legal ramifications.
We should be careful, it does work.
It does work? Wonderful. And you didn't have any problem with the alumni saying no?
Well, we didn't. I don't know the exact stats.
Okay.
We didn't focus it on that employee in particular.
Yeah, we can do the general broad thing. We got that. We have lots of alumni that go to a particular industry, and then we do survey it that way and survey.
So we sent it to our alums, and we said, please give this to your supervisor.
Right.
Your immediate supervisor, and then they will mail it back to us.
And the supervisors did that.
They did that.
I think California might be a little bit more legal.
But it still could depend on what the questionnaire looked like.
That's true.
And I would say I personally didn't design it. Jim Jones, who some of you may know, did design it.
Okay.
So we did get reasonable feedback. So I'll get you the...
Please do. It'd be interesting to see if you ever got any negative feedback from the employer, because I would think it would be incredibly biased towards the positive end. But I'd love to see it, so thank you. Okay, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Engineering Benchmarks Incorporated. Anyone? Mm-hmm. It's one of those canned surveys out there. They do a wonderful job, and they do several things. Number one is they'll analyze your data, but they'll also analyze any other 5 institutions, or I guess it's 6 institutions out there that they are also, they won't list it by name. You can pick who you want, and then you get, it's in a random order, but you can compare your outcomes and your results of your outcomes with everybody else's in there. Okay, and if you're really clever, you can actually pick 2 different groups of 6, so you can stack the books and only show one. So, just kidding. Okay, we believe we're saturating people with surveys. Surveys are wonderful, they're easy, you get the data back, you get what you want, but you're just completely saturating. Our alumni are changing their addresses and phone numbers. Our industrial representatives are just ignoring emails, so we do believe we're burning out, so we're going to have to find some better way to do it. Collection of student work. Portfolios have been out there in the art world and forever, and in certain other places where you collect a group of data and be able to show it off. What we did was we created what we called a webfolio, which is a web-based portfolio, and in it you're supposed to have a resume, an essay on contemporary issues, because we knew we had to measure contemporary issues, an essay on lifelong learning, because we knew we had to do that, and a sample lab report and an abstract from senior design project. And the goal here was that we could just send out the website to constituents. It's password protected. We'd send out it also with a rubric of some kind, okay, and we'd say, email this back to us. So they don't have to be on campus, and they can assess this group of students' work. So, we talk about whether it's a direct or indirect assessment. It's a direct assessment. Okay, this is an example of what it looks like. You can log in if you had the password. You could log in and you could pick then the program, click down on the program, you could pick the year, and then after you have the year, you could go across from the name and pick off the various inputs into the portfolio. And that seems to work for us very well.